Hello, and welcome to the Once Again podcast. We are your hosts, Ashley and Jason. In this episode, we'll be looking at the 2022 film, Lightyear. In this series, we won't be doing a deep analysis of the film, or giving a bunch of behind-the-scenes facts, but rather giving our overall impressions of the film, and giving a score to the film. Since this is a relatively new film at the time of this recording, we feel the need to give you, the audience, a spoiler warning. We will be recapping the entire film and discussing all major plot points. So, if you don't want anything from the movie spoiled for you, turn off this episode and come back once you've watched the movie for yourself. Now grab some popcorn, sit back, and enjoy this episode. Lightyear is a 2022 American computer-animated science fiction action-adventure film produced by Walt Disney Pictures and Pixar Animation Studios, and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures. The film is a spin-off of the Toy Story film series and the fifth overall installment in the franchise. It centers on the character Buzz Lightyear, although instead of following the cast of toy characters from the main franchise, the film presents itself as part of a franchise within the Toy Story films, in which Lightyear is a character.
The film is written by Jason Headley, Matthew Aldrich, and Angus MacLean, who also directed the film. It was produced by Gail Sussman, Peter Docter, and Andrew Stanton. The music is by Michael Giacchino. The cinematographers were Jeremy Lasky and Ian Megbian. The film was edited by Anthony J. Greenberg.
The film follows Lightyear operating as a Space Ranger, who, after being marooned on a hostile planet with his commander and crew, tries to find a way back home while confronting a threat to the universe's safety. The concept of a human Buzz Lightyear, who exists in the fictional universe within a fictional universe, was first adapted in the 2000 direct-to-video film Buzz Lightyear of Star Command: The Adventure Begins, which was then used as the pilot to the TV series Buzz Lightyear of Star Command, which ran from 2000 to 2001. After finishing work on Finding Dory, MacLean, an avid science fiction fan, who previously directed the opening scene and credits of the 2000 Buzz Lightyear of Star Command film and series, pitched the idea of making a film about Buzz Lightyear at Pixar, invoking the science fiction films he grew up watching, with the animators giving the film a cinematic and chunky look to do so. Lightyear premiered at the El Capitan Theater in Los Angeles on June 8th, 2022, I suppose. I forgot to put the year in there. And was theatrically released in the United States on June 17th, 2022 in Real D 3D, 4DX, Dolby Cinema, and IMAX formats. It became the first Pixar film to be released in theaters worldwide since Onward in March of 2020, and the first to be filmed in IMAX. The film was a box office bomb, grossing only $225 million worldwide against a $200 million production budget because of the pandemic.
And I think this movie suffers from people not understanding exactly what it was supposed to be.
Yeah, but
we can get into that later, though.
If we weren't in the COVID times, it would have done much better, I believe.
Oh, probably.
Yeah. And it received generally positive reviews from critics, praising its animation, voice acting, score, and entertainment value, but criticized its plots. The film has a runtime of 105 minutes.
The film stars Chris Evans as Buzz Lightyear, James Brolin as Elder Buzz Lightyear / Zurg, Uzu Aduba as Alicia Hawthorne, Keke Palmer as Izzy Hawthorne, Kiara Harrison as young Izzy, Isaiah Whitlock Jr. as Commander Burnside, Taika Waititi as Mo Morrison, Dale Soules as Darby Steele, Efren Ramirez as Airman Diaz, Peter Son as Sox, Mary McDonnell Lewis as Ivan, Angus MacLean as Eric and Cyclops, Tim Peake as Mission Control, and Bill Hader as Featheringhamson.
Very nicely done. Which I thought that character was going to play a much bigger part in the movie, given how much focus is on him in the beginning. But Sadly, not really.
No. May he rest in peace,
Yeah.
I guess.
So let's dive into the plot. First, we have an opening crawl. I called it that because, Buzz Lightyear kind of invokes Star Wars, even though it's...
And that's kind of what it's supposed to be, though.
Yeah. And it said, in 1995, a boy named Andy got a Buzz Lightyear toy for his birthday. It was from his favorite movie. This is that movie. And then the plot has, in a far future, a massive ship dubbed the Turnip carries a colony through hyperspace to an unknown destination. The ship makes a quick pit stop at a planet named Taika Prime.
Takana Prime.
Thank you, Taikana Prime. And Space Rangers Buzz Lightyear and Alicia Hawthorne traverse the newfound surroundings for any resources. Buzz is a dutiful ranger with a habit of doing things on his own, and makes mission logs to help him focus. Alicia, his best friend, mocks him for this, and has been with him since the early training days at the academy. So I have a few notes here to start off with. I loved Buzz's lines about saying the terrain unstable, air unbreathable, and no signs of intelligent life. It's a Toy Story callback. It made me laugh.
I do love that he's doing that the whole movie too, like doing the mission logs. It just comes back to the toy more too.
Agreed. And then he also has the line saying to Alicia, I believe, "You're mocking me, aren't you?" Which is another direct callback to Toy Story. And I have a question here. Where was Buzz's cool lightsaber accessory with the toy that both Andy and I got? He didn't have that little lightsaber or the gun that he has in the movie here when they released it.
It can't be a perfect one-for-one, Jason. Toys are never perfect.
That's true. Well, he didn't have it then, so that now they can sell a Buzz Lightyear action figure with the cool lightsaber and gun that he has. You're right. I didn't think of that. Alicia also brings along a recruit named Feathering Hamston, which that's
a terrible name. Yeah, but I love it.
That's the whole point of the movie, or not the point of the movie, but the plot in the movie too, is that even Buzz can't say his name, and it's difficult. But whom Buzz is indifferent to, as he feels that he can do things without the aid of anyone. Shortly after meeting the rookie, the trio are attacked by living vines and large flying insects, and rush back to the Turnip. Buzz takes control of the ship and hastily tries to maneuver it off the planet, despite Feathering Hamston and Alicia trying to offer their help to him and the low altitude that the ship has. He just barely manages to fly the Turnip off the ground, but it hits a cliff, causing them to lose air and crash back down onto the planet. With the last of their Krallistic fusion energy wasted, Buzz offers to have himself stripped of his rank, but Alicia perks him up and gives him a new mission to get them off the planet by using the planet's resources to make a new Krallistic fuel source. 1 year later, the colony has developed a civilization, with vines and bugs only being a minor problem. A new fuel source is created and set to be tested by Buzz himself. Their plan is for Buzz to use the fuel to fly off planet, make a swing around the closest sun, and try to reach hyperspace before safely landing back on Takana Prime. Buzz flies off to the sun and manages to loop around, but nearly damages the ship's engine, forcing him to eject the fuel and sling himself back through the safety loops. And I have a note here saying that I laughed out loud when Buzz had to blow into the cartridge to get Ivan, the computer, to work correctly. It obviously reminded me of the older video game cartridges, like the ones that we had in 1995.
Well, I think this movie's trying to invoke too, like that feeling that this movie would have came out in like 1995, because that's the thought processes. This movie came out in 1995, and this is Andy's favorite movie.
Yeah, even though the animation is way beyond anything that they had in 1995.
Can't think that.
But yeah, it does invoke that feeling. You're correct. And Buzz lands and notices that Airman Diaz now has a beard, where he did not have one before. Diaz reveals that his trip caused him to miss over 4 years on the planet. Buzz is reunited with Alicia, who is now his superior, and brings him up to date on how his trip is affected by time, and asks that he abandon the mission. Buzz additionally learns that in the intervening years, Alicia met a scientist named Kiko, who is now engaged to her, while the colony has chosen to build living quarters. Buzz is given his, and is additionally given a small robotic cat named Socks, who was designed to be his close companion, while also displaying useful technological devices with him. Buzz has a nightmare about his crash and decides to give Socks a mission to find a suitable formula for a fuel source. And I have a note here saying that you gotta love Socks.
Oh my god, Socks is perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I kept seeing toys and videos of him and thinking he was a little creepy, but now I'm like, no, would die for Socks, want my own socks. How do I get science to get caught up on making me my own little socks?
I mean, if they can make that BB-8 robot, I think we're not far away from Socks. Yeah, Socks would be great. Buzz meets up with Alicia and manages to convince her to let him go again until they find the right fuel to get off the planet. In the years that Buzz spends traveling into space and back, he witnesses Alicia's life flash before his eyes. Her pregnancy, her family life with Kiko, her son's graduation and marriage, and her autumn years. And I wrote a note here saying I loved the little 3-second scene of a much older Alicia driving very poorly.
And then flaps his hand when he tries to take control. Oh, I love that too.
Yeah, it was great. And then Buzz eventually returns to find that Alicia has passed away, but left behind a message telling him to continue the fight, while also revealing her granddaughter Izzy, who aspires to be a Space Ranger. And I wrote a note here saying that Pixar does know how to pack the emotional punch. It was very sad watching Alicia's last recording for Buzz, two characters we've maybe spent 20 minutes with at this point of the film.
You know, I was telling Jason, like, I knew this was, like, part of the plot that, like, time was going to skip. So I figured this was going to happen over the course of the film. So the fact that this happened in 20 minutes, I got to the end of this and was like, I have an emotional wreck, but also we have another, like, hour of this movie. What the hell is going to happen? Like, surely we got the main points out already. Like, because Pixar likes to play with the emotions, which is why I thought that was going to be the movie. And the moral of the story was going to be, at the end, we should have just enjoyed our time with our friends.
Yeah, which you could
make it is, but also, like, not the same, for the same reason, I would say. Like, but, woo.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's not... It's almost as sad as the first 10 minutes of Up.
Yeah.
Which was brilliantly done because there's no dialogue there or anything. Mm-hmm. Like, so Up is still tops it, but this gets pretty close.
This also has very little dialogue, which I think is what does it. And but again, and I was telling you this earlier, that 4 years are passing by, and, like, they know they're going to keep letting him do this. At some point, like, why are these people not progressing on their own in that 4 years to be like, he should be coming back and they should be like, okay, we have it figured out.
Yeah.
Or we figured out a different plan. Like, they're just letting him continue to do this and, like, making these bare minimum changes to try and change things, and it's not working.
Yeah, it's not like they're like, okay, we came up with 50 different variants now for you to try. They're like, okay, well, here's the next one. Whereas Buzz tells Socks to figure it out, and Socks spends these 60 years figuring out the correct formula.
Yeah, it took him that long. But imagine if it wasn't just Socks doing it. If, like, other people, maybe it would have been figured out in, like, 40.
Yeah, exactly.
And Alicia also would have gotten to be a Space Ranger again. Like, those are the things I think about. Like, why wasn't anybody doing anything? Like, they were just like, okay, bye, Buzz. Go do the thing again. Maybe I'll get it right this time. Woohoo.
Yeah. Alicia's office is now occupied by Commander Burnside, who informs Buzz that the mission to get off the planet has been canceled, and that they will make do by building a laser shield, shocking Buzz. Buzz solemnly returns to his living quarters and learns that Socks managed to successfully find a suitable formula for the crystallic engine. However, soldiers, dubbed Zappers, arrive to decommission Socks, and Buzz flees with them. Socks uses his ability to use a tranquilizer dart to get past one Zapper, making Buzz realize that Socks was initially designed to keep him in line. And that's a hilarious scene of the film where he shoots the guy with the dart, and Buzz was like, whoa, was that for me? And he's like, if you stepped out of line, yeah. Like, and then, using the formula, they managed to create the perfect crystallic fusion. But the computer carrying the information gets destroyed, and Buzz and Socks flee once again. They manage to get back onto a spaceship and escape the Zappers, with Buzz flying around the sun and successfully achieving hyperspace. And I have here Socks' line saying, "Congratulations, Buzz. That was utterly terrifying, and I regret having joined you. And
That's so good.
Yeah, I love this
You
character.
know what bothers me, though, is that they wanted to decommission him, like, 10 seconds after Buzz got back, basically. Like, don't you think this man's been through a lot? Shouldn't you leave the, emotional support animal with him for a little bit, and then decommission it in, like, a month or two?
Yeah, his best friend died, and...
Right? And you're just gonna go, yank it.
Yeah. Buzz returns to the planet, but finds that things have become much more barren. He is rescued by a cadet from a robot who teleports itself and Buzz's ship away. The cadet reveals herself to be a grown-up Izzy Hawthorne. Buzz has traveled over 22 years into the future. Izzy reveals that the robot came from a giant mothership floating above the surface of the planet, dubbed the Zurg ship, after the fact that the robots can only say Zurg. She further reveals that the robots are surrounding the colony, who have placed up their laser shield and are trapped. In order to defeat the robots, they need to blow up the ship, which they now can do due to Buzz being a pilot. Which I think is interesting that they had to have none of them. Well, we'll get to it, but none of them knew how to fly a ship. You think that would be something with
that somebody would be trained on?
Yeah.
These people really weren't planning on ever leaving, and I'm like, so you're just gonna send this man anyway, a million times? Alicia should have sat him down sooner then and been like, Buzz.
Yeah.
We're never gonna get off. And, maybe he wouldn't have heard it anyway and listened. But, surely there is something that could have been done prior to this.
Yeah. But it's just interesting because, you think, you look at, maybe Star Trek as an example. Why can't I think of the character's name right now? Who flies the ship? The Asian guy.
Sulu.
Sulu, thank you. Yeah. Sulu flies the ship. But if Sulu isn't there, then the Russian guy takes over and he flies the ship. And if both of them have to go for some reason, because Kirk likes to use all of his first officers on missions onto planets for whatever reason, there's another guy a red shirt that steps in and flies the ship. There's
and to be fair, I'm sure Kirk could probably fly the ship if
Kirk
he really
can most certainly fly the ship.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody can fly the ship.
Yeah, it's just
that's part of training in space.
Yeah, it's just weird that they were oh no, none of us know how to fly, and that. I don't know. Not that flying isn't difficult, it is, but it seems like something that you could figure out.
If you were living in a space colony, that would be a need to know.
Exactly. But Buzz, Sox, and Izzy reach the fort, where the latter introduces the rest of the team: Darby Steele, Mo Morrison, and Eric, a robot. Eric/Derek, whatever you want to call them. With the plan set in motion, the group is suddenly attacked by a robot that blows up their ship and tries to carry Buzz away. And I have a note here saying Buzz delivered the line that he always used with him and Alicia. They would say, "To infinity and beyond." The other
touch, point their fingers.
Yeah, kind of like E.T. and Elliot. Yeah. And he tries to do this with Izzy, and he's like, "Oh, it's a thing your grandmother and I used to do," and Mo is like, "Ew." And he's like, "No, not like that. We weren't." And I just wrote, it's great adult humor. They're alluding to something more going on between Buzz and Alicia, but it'll go over little kids' heads. So, at this point, it becomes apparent that each member is ill-equipped to handle any action or danger. Nevertheless, Buzz manages to disarm the robot, and Mo unintentionally puts it out of commission by tossing a harpoon at its head. Which, this robot, it's like the Terminator. It keeps coming back for them throughout the whole movie. Buzz learns that the group is actually Junior Patrol, and are not even considered rookies. Mo came aboard thinking that he was attending a workout boot camp and has always been a quitter. Darby is trying to shorten her sentence after having stolen a ship, while Izzy, who is well knowledgeable in her grandmother's life, lacks patience. Without a ship, Buzz resolves to get a new one. Eric informs them that they have an abandoned hangar nearby, but he even suffers from a major flaw where he is unable to provide a proper pathway to it on the map and becomes distracted by trying to correct himself. Despite Buzz's reluctance, the rest of the patrol insists on coming along with him as they too know the way. They arrive at the hangar where Buzz plans to part ways with them, taking Socks with him. The interior of the hangar is littered with eggs of giant insects. Buzz finds his old uniform, but is followed by the patrol after he accidentally took their keys to the truck. They end up alerting the insects and lock themselves in the changing room. Buzz resolves to have the patrol wear the other uniforms and use stealth mode to get out, while he and Socks leave via the spaceship. The plan works, but Buzz forgot to tell them that stealth mode is limited energy and the whole group is forced to escape onto the spaceship and fly out of the hangar. Which that scene, it kind of bothered me because they were so much closer to just leaving than they were to get to the ship that Buzz was on. And they're like, nope, go back to the ship. They could have just gotten out if they had run for the door, but whatever. They avert the insects as well as another spaceship that tries to shoot them down. During this time, it is revealed that Izzy suffers from astrophobia, the fear of space, which would technically ban her from being a ranger. And I have a note here saying, when Zurg engaged them in the airship battle, I got major Darth Vader vibes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, just a lot of Star Wars references pop up in this, intentionally so. Buzz and the crew manage to safely land the ship, but they blow out a fuel cell. Izzy directs the group to a nearby mining facility to get a spare part. The group managed to find the spare part in the control deck, but Mo accidentally triggers an alarm, causing red cones to come down and trap them. Working together, they manage to destroy the controls, just as the control deck breaks off and nearly falls into the mine. This was the first piece of Pixar foreshadowing that they all had to come together to get the thing to work, but it was nicely done. The group gathers together and eats sandwiches from the vending machine that, oddly enough, have the bread on the inside and the meat on the outside, which is supposed to be hilarious.
I have a note here, though, because... So I was watching it with somebody else, and he immediately was like, is it the alternate universe? Is that what's going on? Is that why the meat's on the outside? Is that he flung himself into a completely different universe? That's what's going on?
That's not a bad idea, actually. Yeah.
This isn't even the original timeline?
If they decide to do a Buzz Lightyear 2, they could definitely do that with that. Because, it is, and they make, so much about this that,
Yeah, it's, a good, 10-minute segment of, what do you mean you had sandwiches with 2 pieces of bread? Yeah. Wouldn't that be
bread, meat, bread? It'd be so dry.
That's a lot of bread.
Yeah, that's too much bread. And no, you want meat, bread, meat. That way, and you get sticky fingers afterwards. It's delicious.
And then you get to lick your fingers you're licking Cheeto dust off your fingers.
Yeah,
it's meat sauce off your fingers.
It is a long segment, and it would make sense to be an alternate universe because of what gets revealed later in the film.
That's apparently he had known that about the film going into it, which is why he was like, "Oh my god, I think this is alternate universe," and I was like, "I don't know, maybe
that could work though." I like that idea. As Mo sulks over nearly costing them the mission, Buzz admits that when he first got to the academy, he was one of the worst rangers, but that Alicia saw something in him and pushed him until he became one of the best rangers in the squad. As the team heads back to the ship, they are attacked by Zurg himself, who is after Buzz and ignores the others. Zurg speaks to him, telling him to come, but the team rescues Buzz and get him back onto the ship and escape. Zurg sends his minions after the team, and they hastily fly away with Mo and Darcy using weapons to fend off the robots. As they attempt to fly, Izzy presumptuously releases the crystallic fusion, and they lose it to one of the robots. As Buzz walks away defeated, Zurg appears again and captures him before disappearing, leaving the team in shock. Buzz is taken onto the mothership and confronts Zurg, but Zurg stops him. Zurg is revealed to be a giant suit, and within it, an elderly Buzz, who has also kept his version of Socks, who has slightly deteriorated. Old Buzz reveals that when he returned to Takana Prime, Burnside immediately arrived to arrest him. He continued to travel into the future with Socks until he arrived at a point where technology had advanced beyond anything he could imagine. And my note here is when Zurg reveals himself to Buzz, Buzz first calls him Dad. A reference to Toy Story 2? Possibly? Since that's what Zurg that's what Zurg reveals to Buzz in that movie. And which is, of course, itself a reference to Empire Strikes Back.
Could be.
Yeah. And using that technology, the older Buzz has traveled back in time to prevent the crash that stranded him on the planet, but has nearly used up his crystallic fusion and has been hoping to use the current Buzzes. Younger Buzz is happy to learn that they can go back, but realizes that Alicia was always happy with her life, and that it could potentially mean that Izzy and her friends would cease to exist. He refuses, intending to simply get the colony off the planet, and Old Buzz reveals his true colors by capturing him. However, Old Socks uses that tranquilizer dart to knock out Old Buzz and decides to help the young Buzz getting off the ship and returning the crystallic fuel. Back on Takata Prime, Izzy reveals that they can use the teleport discs from the robots and transports herself, Socks, Mo, and Darby up to the mothership. Izzy and Socks go looking for Buzz, while Mo and Darby struggle to stop the incoming robot army. Old Socks takes Buzz to the control room and sets a self-destruct timer for 2 minutes. However, Old Buzz returns as Zurg and destroys Old Socks. Which...
Betrayal.
Yeah, very sad in my opinion, because that was his companion for so many years.
Poor Socks.
Yeah, and this forces Buzz to face him in combat. Izzy and Socks find Buzz, but the fastest way there is by jumping out of the airlock towards the cockpit. Izzy finally conquers her fears, and they jump out and reach the other side of the ship. And I wrote down that this is a legitimately terrifying moment of Izzy jumping across the gap. Like, it scared me, and I'm just a character watching these fictional characters. As somebody
who's watched, other stuff, like The Expanse, and, in The Expanse they consistently do things like that, it's this could go wrong for a multitude of reasons.
That's, I'm going to spoil another movie here, but it came out a couple years ago. That's the plot of Gravity with Sandra Bullock and George Clooney.
Yeah.
They're out in space, and George Clooney gets severed from the rod connecting them and just floats away. And then at a certain point in the movie, he comes back. And, he's like, oh, no, I went around the Earth and came back onto the ship and stuff. And it's like, oh, I guess that could work. But then it's
theoretically it could happen, but he would have died way before he got back.
Right, but it wasn't really him. She was hallucinating him, but he came back and helped her get back onto Earth and everything like that. So he wasn't really there, but it was like, oh, I guess that could work, that he wouldn't just float off into space. But no, that's what really happens to poor George in that movie. He floats off into space and dies. But Mo and Darcy unleash their trap on the robots just as Izzy and Socks enter and help Buzz take care of Zurg. They grab the crystallic fusion and teleport back to the main deck to escape via the ship. The ship explodes, sending Buzz flying, and uses the crystal to power his own ship and fly towards his friends. Zurg is revealed to have survived and grabs the crystal, forcing Buzz to eject and getting his wings in the process, which was such a cool moment in the movie. And I, until this moment, legitimately forgot that the Buzz Lightyear action figure had wings. But when the wings popped out, when he hit the eject, I was like, oh yeah, that's right. And I was just like, that's kind of awesome. And blows up the crystal along with Zurg. He flees and rescues his friends by steering their ship towards the ground and manages to fall with style. And I wrote down here on the note, okay, the wings part was awesome. Buzz admits that he blew up the crystal, but has accepted life on Takana Prime as his home. With the whole team safe, they are approached by a rescue team along with a very angry Burnside. Burnside reprimands Buzz for the years of going against protocol, only to congratulate him for saving the colony. Wanting to restart the Space Ranger program, he offers any member of the Zappers to be a part of his team, but Buzz has already decided on his own. Adorned in brand new, upgraded armor, Buzz and his team prepare for their next mission. Buzz and Izzy admire a statue of Alicia before continuing to their brand new ship. Buzz, Izzy, Mo, Darcy, and Socks get set for a brand new adventure with their motto, to infinity and beyond. That's how the film ends, and then we have a couple of post-credit scenes. In a mid-credit scene, Burnside is sitting in his office looking over papers when a giant insect is zapped by the laser force field, something that makes him proud, because Burnside came up with the whole laser force field idea. In the post-credit scene, Eric finally maps out the perfect route to take to the hangar, only to realize that everyone has already left. And in a second post-credit scene, the Zurg armor floats through space after the explosion, and the eyes of the suit light up, indicating he survived. Okay. Should we go into our overall scores?
I think so.
Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Sure, I'll go first.
Okay.
I greatly enjoyed this film. I kind of walked into it not assuming I was going to like it, because I think that's why, I know you said the pandemic, but also I think a lot of people were kind of put off by the idea of this film a little bit, just because of how Disney and Pixar was marketing it, I think. Like, I don't think they were marketing it very well to, like, explain what this movie was, but I liked that it was very fast-paced, there was a lot going on the whole time. My only complaint would be, I know it's an animated movie, so you gotta, like, suspend disbelief a little bit, but sometimes we were like, science? Science doesn't exist in this film. We're just not gonna make any sense with the space stuff sometimes. And I'd sit there and be like, okay, but that, like, if that person actually did that, that would not how that would work. Like, so, gotta suspend disbelief a little. And I would definitely give it, like, a 7 out of 10. I liked it. Would watch it, would recommend everybody watch it for the most part. I don't know if I'd ever want to see, like, a sequel to this. I think this was a good one and done. Like, I like the idea that, like, they are, like, hinting that there might be a sequel in this universe that exists, but, like, I don't need to know it,
Alright. Well, I have to say I very much enjoyed this movie. It has some dull parts and perhaps a story that is both simple and somehow confusing at the same time, but overall it's entertaining. The animation is fantastic, the voice acting is great, and the emotional parts do pack a punch. However, it's far from a perfect film. Most of the plot is formulaic and nothing really that inventive, just a paint-by-numbers Pixar movie. And at the same time, certain plot points, like how older Buzz traveled back in time or why he's old in general, are just hand-waved over. Also, the character of Mo Morrison is just a bad Taika Waititi. I wrote rip-off character, but that's because I forgot that Taika Waititi actually voiced him. It's just a bad Taika Waititi character, and his jokes get old very quickly. Another major criticism I have of the film is that I'm relatively the same age as the character of Andy from Toy Story. Canonically, Andy was born in 1989, so I'm just 2 years older than him. And while I enjoyed this movie now, as an adult, I would most likely have found it boring as a child. So I find the premise hard to believe that this movie is what made Buzz Lightyear Andy's new favorite toy. All that being said, I'm going to give Lightyear a 7 out of 10. The parts of it that worked very well. But there are just some parts of the movie that I didn't enjoy.
I kind of agree with you on that, because I was born in 1991, and I'm trying to, like, imagine being around that age and, like, wanting to watch this, and the answer would be no.
Yeah.
Like, this is an adult film, is how I would look at it. Like, an animated adult film.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, it's the perfect
like, the plot
millennial
is
movie.
Yeah, like, the plot is very adult, I think. It's not a children's plot. Like, even the humor is not necessarily children-oriented.
No, agreed. Yeah, I think it's a millennial movie. A millennial movie. It's like, oh, hey, remember when Toy Story came out? Well, we're kind of doing a
We're
thing.
We're invoking that same feeling.
Yeah, here you go.
But I can't imagine being, like, 5-6 years old and, like, liking this movie.
No. Yeah, no, I wouldn't have either.
It feels like a Star Wars movie, I think, is the issue. Like, it feels like your typical space movie, which is the vibe they were going for. But as a kid, I didn't want to watch, like, Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have had the attention span for something like that.
I think Star Wars, especially the first one, has a much simpler plot than this.
Accurate.
Because the first one in particular is a fantasy story set in space. Hero gets an old knight to go rescue the princess from the Dark Knight, all in black. Like, it's just fantasy set in space. This, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as... Like, I would have liked certain parts of it, and maybe have been like, oh, that's cool, and stuff. But the parts that resonate with me now definitely wouldn't have resonated with me as a kid. Like, the relationship between Buzz and Alicia, and then, like I probably would have been like a kid being like, no, old Buzz is right. Like, he should go back in time and prevent this from happening. Like, it doesn't make sense.
Could he be with his best friend?
Yeah, exactly. But all that being... Anything else?
No, I think we're good.
Well, this has been the Once Again Podcast. Any questions, comments, or critiques can be addressed to our email at onceagainpod@gmail.com. Follow us on our social media accounts, Once Again Pod, all one word, on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, which I really got to get posted on that TikTok. If you would like to contribute to the podcast, we have several tiers available on patreon.com/onceagainpod. As always, a like, follow, or share would be greatly appreciated. Thank you and have a wonderful day. And remember, we will entertain you. We will always entertain you. Rumpelstiltskin always says that magic comes with a price. But for this price, you can get a nice piece of jewelry. Use code ONCEPOD for 10% off your first order at Unusual Magic Jewelry on Etsy. Click the link in the description.